Ladies and gentlemen, are we live? Yes, we are. How about that? Ladies and gentlemen, coming at you live and in color from our secret undisclosed location on Newport Harbor in Newport Beach, California. And this is what is this? Who knows what we'll watch Wednesday. And it's July the 8th, 2026. And we're glad everybody decided to come along with this little excursion in the airwaves today. And before we get down to the broadcast and the matters at hand, and everybody's more or less aware of NATO and the more or less intricacies and the intricate details and workings and interactions that are taking place there. I wanted to take a minute and kind of say a word or a prayer about all the people that have just died in this heat wave. I mean, we know it's climate change contributing to this. And you have people who are devoutly anti-science, eliminating programs that we've had for a long time that were very productive, very beneficial. Uh, but yeah, I mean, I think what was it? New Jersey alone had 29, and God, Paris had what, 40, and this is just dying from heat. This isn't a disease. This isn't and we've traced it down. I mean, it's a scientific fact. Ignoring it does not make it go away. If you ignore a bad band, maybe they'll go away, but you can't ignore climate change and just otherwise, this is what happens. The ozone layer gets thinner and thinner. More and more heat gets through. The oceans get warmer, and that causes and the breeze blows when the temperature difference between the water and the land. I mean, it's just it's really bad, and it's been proven. I mean, yeah, Al Gore was right. Al Gore was 1,000% right, and you have a charlatan at best, saying all climate change is a hoax. And oh, by the way, let's do away with all those green initiatives that Joe Biden had, and let's go burn some more fossil fuel. And how about that coal industry? Huh? They deserve a shot in the arm, don't they? Not enough people have died from black lung. Let's get those guys back in those mines. Isn't that just pathetic? And that's what's going on. Chevron, everybody wants the Venezuelan oil, so they got it. And Trump's nailing down Iran's oil. This guy's just genuinely bad. But anyway, what I didn't want to divert my attention to Trump just quite yet. I'm really serious about the people that have died. I mean, I guess it's a heat stroke or something. And regardless, it just it just doesn't have to be, it shouldn't have to be this way, and it doesn't have to be this way. We were taking remedial steps, to at least do what we could and not make things and improve things gradually, because that's about as technological as we can do right now. We're not in a position to make, I don't think we have the knowledge to make the huge climate change differences, but I think we've clearly got enough to matter. And the dismissal of science as a hoax is the height of ignorance. And if you are ignorant, you are probably an ignoramus, or what's that thing? Some dinosaur thing that's extremely old. Anyway, just a few thoughts on that. Saying goodbye to those people, and hope, and hope you wake up in some fantastic place. We're really sorry that happened, and this isn't a U.S. apology thing, but we are contributing, and not only are we contributing, we mash the gas pedal down, and it is it is the United States. The individuals in Europe or the Middle East may take us individually when if we meet them, but as a general proposition, you had millions of people on the street the other day for Ayatollah Khomeini's funeral. And I don't think they were saying like USA, USA, USA. I think what came before USA was death to, like death to USA, death to USA, or death to America. So, yeah, that's you got millions of people saying this. And I said they're pretty much in the driver's seat. And you guys know at this point that Trump's promising to relaunch strikes on Iran because they fired on a few ships, and it's another testament to incompetence from top to bottom. But moving right along, I really want this to be a shiny, happy place for Democrats. Uh, but sometimes, some things just need to be said. And you guys know what a big fan I am of the New York Times. Oh, and by the way, if anybody loves the New York Times like I do, give us a call, 949-629-3820, and let us know who your favorite columnist is. Uh, the Times is, I still consider it the official paper of the U.S. I think they have the best reporters. I think they have more credibility than anybody else. And they don't back down from lawsuits. And because they don't back down from lawsuits, they never lose. They always win because the other guys are wrong. The Times is a real institution, and they've built up relationships over time that some people can't understand that those relationships are extremely beneficial and should not be tampered with. But gosh, you're really making me go off here on good old what's his name. Anyway, what I want to do today is not very exciting, if you can believe that. I always thought I was a relatively exciting political host, but I may not be as exciting as I thought I was. I'm sure my mother is, looking down on Donald Trump, saying, "Man, I'd like to buy him what he's worth and sell him what he thinks he's worth." On the mom's remedy. But anyway, the reason I mentioned the New York Times is Tom Friedman had an opinion today, and I'm sure you guys know who Tom Friedman is. If not, I'm not going to say Google him, but I will say, query him or search his name, Thomas Friedman, New York Times, and you'll be able to, if you want to check out his credibility, he's right there. And don't forget, credibility is worthy of being believed. Okay, worthy of being believed, not a lie, not a hoax, not a whatever. This is capable of being worthy of being believed, and that's the standard for that or is the equivalent of, can I take that to the bank? Do you mean that? So anyway, with that in mind, let's go into Tom Friedman's a very, very, very appropriately titled article, and it's really simple, 4 words that I guarantee make you cringe and laugh at the same time. And you ready for this? Trump is fleecing everyone. And I say this is the New York Times editorial page, the opinion section. And I'm not gonna read every word to you, but I want to follow along the points that he makes. And he starts off: our country is built on written documents, the Declaration of Independence, the Constitution, and the Bill of Rights, to name the most important. So to celebrate America's 250th birthday, my wife Anne hosted a special event at Planet Word, the immersive language museum she founded in Washington to promote literacy. The singer-composer Nolan Williams Jr. led a sing-along featuring classic American songs, including, of course, Woody Guthrie's "This Land Is Your Land." Despite 100-degree heat, a remarkably diverse crowd of 300 people packed the museum's main hall, and young and old sang together with gusto. There was so much joy and camaraderie in the room, and so many leaving attendees saying to one another how much they wish, get this, how much they wish the entire country could reflect that same harmony every day. So many people asked afterwards, why aren't we singing these songs together on the National Mall? Good question. Yeah, I think so. Which leads, I'm sorry to say, to a quite different variation on "This Land Is Your Land," heard on the National Mall later that evening. In my mind, it was the Trump variation with lyrics that went, "This land is my land. This land is my land. From California to the New York Island. From the cryptocurrency to the Qatari 747. This land belongs to me and mine." Now, I'm sure if you listened or read that, you would just stop right there and go, you are preaching to the choir now. So let's go on. One thing about President Trump, he is consistent. He never surprises you on the upside. He has never been remotely interested in being the president of all the people, only his base. He never tries to win by addition, only by division, only by us versus them. As my newsroom colleague Sean, what's his name, Sean Creech reported for the Mall, Mr. Trump used the nation's birthday to scaremonger about Democrats. 4 months before the midterms, he talked a lot about that communism and demanded that Congress pass an act that would make it harder to vote. Sean continued, what was meant to be the centerpiece of the nation's 250th anniversary celebration was in some ways just another Trump rally. This very same 4th of July, two other newsroom colleagues of mine, Eric Lipton and David Yaffe Bellany, reported that nearly 1 million people who bought President Trump's meme coin have lost money through the end of June, according to a report by the cryptocurrency analytics firm Nansen. I assume they're credible. You're more than welcome to look it up. That's cryptocurrency analytics firm Nansen, Nansen. Anyway, the investors' losses totaled $3.81 billion. My colleagues pointed out that the calculation came after Trump signed a financial disclosure revealing that uh, crypto uh, the same crypto bet dealt him a $636 million payout. In all, his business ventures brought him at least $2.2 billion in 2025, and that would be billion dollars. $2.2 billion in 2025. Not a bad gig, huh? Okay. So Friedman goes on. This is a big story, and my gut tells me that Trump also smells that this could be a big story of how badly he fleeced his own supporters. Let's go over that again. This is a big story. And my gut, Tom Friedman's gut, is telling him Trump also smells that this is going to be a big deal. And the big story is going to be how badly he fleeced his own supporters. And that, 2.2 billion doesn't show up out of thin air, got to come from someplace. What are you going to sell or who are you going to rip off to get it? It's the only question. And we know that Trump pretty much excels at all that. So since the start of Trump's second term, it's been widely reported that he has been exploiting the presidency for financial gain. But the story needed a real number and real victims. Now it has both. $2.2 billion in total gains for Trump and at least $3.81 billion in losses for his investors. And Friedman, of course, says that's a bumper sticker. Trump famously boasted that he could shoot someone in the middle of Fifth Avenue and his supporters would still be with him. Will they also stick with him when he fleeces them? Isn't that going to be, let him shoot a stranger. How about when he takes your money? Huh? You voted for him, you sucker. And have no doubt he was targeting them, as the Times also reported. 3 days, count them three. That Monty Python thing. The counting of the number shall be three, and three shall be the number of the count, whatever it is. 3 days, 3 mere days before his inauguration, Trump unveiled his second Trump-branded investment, the $ Trump meme coin, a type of novelty currency with little practical value. And here's one of the quotes. It's time to celebrate everything we stand for. Winning, capital letters, exclamation mark. Mr. Trump wrote on social media, join my very special Trump community. Get your $ Trump meme coin now. But, that could have been really bad advice, you think? And, of course, he's, pretty worried about the next, election. Oh gosh, hang on, I can't. Let's see here. All right, let me get sorry about that. Democrats will win the House or the Senate or both, and launch investigations into how much he has used his office and exploited his own supporters for grotesque personal gain. That's that's the worst kind of personal gain. Is the grotesque personal gain. Therefore, in my mind, the right themes for Democrats going into the midterms are two. If they win, they'll expose how much Trump has been ripping off his own supporters. And if they win, they'll make bringing the country together a priority. I believe the quest for national unity is the most underestimated political force in the country today. It's not an accident. CNN reported last month that nearly half of Americans say they don't consider themselves a part of either major political party. The highest level of partisan independence measured by CNN in polling in more than a decade. I'm sure that's true because I heard the best political analyst I know make the same point. His name is Barack Obama, which brings me to a third version of this land is your land. It was Obama's speech at the opening ceremony of his presidential center in Chicago, which I attended. My favorite passage from Obama was this. As algorithms keep feeding us a steady stream of distraction and outrage, as only the loudest, most extreme voices get attention, fanning our prejudices, appealing to our basest, most tribal instincts, it's tempting to give in to cynicism and even despair to stop trying. We start thinking that appeals to democracy and civic participation are corny and old fashioned and boring and naive, that the very idea of working on behalf of the common good is a sucker's bad, and that in order for us to win, somebody else has got to lose. I get it. I'm not immune to anger or doubt, but I do know this. When we lose faith in each other, when we stop believing that voting matters, that citizenship matters, that our collective voices matter, that how we treat each other no longer matters, and we give away our power to decide our own futures, we open the door to the most ruthless or the most careless or the most fearful among us, who see some groups and some people as more equal than others, and see government as nothing more than a way to to dispense the spoils and punish enemies, and keep those who are different in their place. I mean, did you have me so far? The fact is, though, Obama continued, uh, the fa- I do not believe that it's the story of America that prevails in the end. I remain convinced, excuse me, that the overwhelming majority of Americans aren't looking for perpetual anger and division. They're looking for fairness and common sense and mutual respect. And, and that deep in our gut, we want to find a way to turn toward each other again, not further away. So, Democrats, you have your assignment. It's to not let Trump bait you into blind rage and extreme ideas. He feeds off that. Just focus on how much he's been fleecing all of us while tearing us apart, and how much Democrats intend to pull the whole country together. Because this land was made for you and me. So, guys, Tom Friedman today, June the 8th, July 8th, sorry, New York Times. If you want a copy, that's where it is. If you don't have means to do that, let me call or email the show, and I'm happy to send you the link. Oh, and don't forget, ladies and gentlemen, oh, that's a little work and getting a little scratchy early. You guys might be lucky. Anyway, just give us a call, 949-629-3820. And what did you think of Friedman? You know, you can't, you just can't doubt him. He has the experience and the contacts and the support to write that sort of an opinion and be on target. I mean, when you look at the really gross nature of the 47th president and coincidentally the 45th. And by the way, guys, I would love to know for anybody that voted for him in 2024, didn't January 6th kind of suggest that he was not a really good person for the job? I mean, how could you vote for him again? What what led you to forgive January 6th as treason? Just kind of like a Jack in the Box toy. You just kind of look at it and throw it away. You know, you guys gave him this power. You set him up with the Supreme Court. They'd been working this for, and it killed me. I remember Lindsey Graham going on off and off about how the Democrats keep getting their judges from these liberal institutions, and how crooked that was and all that. But yet, what did they do? They get the suggested higher list from the Federalist Society. Uh, you know, uh, and guys, central to democracy are the rules, right? Like Friedman says, the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution. They define the rules of the game, subject to interpretation by courts. And what we have to really do in order to bring as much of the country together as possible is we need to start agreeing on a common set of facts, or I think a common set of operative facts. We need to all look at the tapes from January 6th, and everybody just kind of make up, after looking at it, what do you see? And I think if you got 80% or more of the people to say that was a violent attack on the Capitol, then I think we're kind of on the road to agreeing to a common set of operative facts. And once you get that people believing in that common set of operative facts, people tend to follow the rules just because we're a rules-based society. And keep in mind that rules are, just another name for laws, right? And thou shalt not, murder or steal or whatever it is, from theft, robbery. Uh, you can't. Anyway, you get the idea what I'm talking about. And doesn't Trump's crypto deal kind of remind you of like stealing? Let's see. I sell my customers a thing that's not really worth anything, and I'm going to sell $4 billion of this stuff. And if I'm not mistaken, doesn't that bear some similarity to what would be called a snake oil salesman? I mean, whatever it is, Dr. Brown can cure your ills for the low price of, I guess back then would have been $5 a bottle. The elixir of life, whatever it is. And somebody just like peed in a bottle or something. So anyway, uh, so it's just another. So anyway, people buy $4 billion worth of this stuff, and they did it primarily in $10,000 increments. Just easy bookkeeping for Trump. Okay, so if somebody put in $10,000 in those dollar sign Trump meme coins, what would they be worth today? Now, would you believe I just so happen to have the answer because I kind of I look at the times too, and I think that $10,000 is worth like $364. Now that would leave like a 9,600 and something dollar loss on the transaction, $36 loss. Right? You spent 10,000, you got 364 back. So where did the other 9,000, 636 go? But the better question is, where did everybody's, $9,636 go? Well, I think I'm not much of an accountant. I'm certainly not much of a bookkeeper, but I think that's where Trump fleeced the flock and made a good portion of his 1.4 out of his $2.2 billion haul from 2025. That's that's just theft. And Friedman is entirely right. But to lay it out like that, I just think is really cool. I mean, I know people that voted for Trump. I can't understand how or why. I think sometimes it's nothing more than identity politics. Some people identify so much with it being a Republican that this election they'll just show up and pull the R lever. Is what they do. It's what they've always done. It's who they are. And there's not much you can really do to convince somebody like that that their identity has been wrong for ages. Yeah, every now and then you can convince someone, but as a general proposition, it's still up to us to turn out our voters to take care of this. Okay. And how'd you like the rewrite of "This Land Is Your Land"? I kind of thought that was cool. I always admire when people do things like that, and I didn't know Friedman had it in him, to be honest with you. Okay, so now that we've gotten through with Trump fleecing everybody, or every investor, and I guess when he wants to do the $1.8 billion January 6th compensation fund, I guess he's kind of fleecing us again, and it's entirely possible that those 1,600 people that got those pardons, it's entirely possible they're just like us, a speed dial away from Trump. He can have his own little personal army at the Capitol when they try to throw him out. Because let's assume he loses. What's he gonna do? You never. You can rest assured he ain't going easily or willingly. That's pretty much beyond a shadow of a doubt. But it's always dangerous to try and predict the actions of a lunatic, and it's usually not very helpful to try because usually you can't. A right thinking person can't can't begin to think along those terms. Anyway, it's just time you want to move on from him and you can't. The guy's personality is such that he inserts himself into everything. It's not it's not like people love being around the guy. It's not like he's a warm, caring, sensitive human being. Yeah, as a matter of fact, I don't think he's ever heard those words before. A warm, caring, sensitive human being. Anyway, that's just sheer speculation, but he just looks like the kind of guy that when the mothers invited him over to play, he's the kid that would break the son's toys and then say the son did it and then offer to fix it. So, and how about those guys in Europe are still talking about well, it's only been 2 days about the red card thing. Uh, you know, Sports is supposed to be just non-political. It's a game, it's a contest, and it's more important to participate in a fair contest than to win. Even though those saying it's not whether you win or lose, it's how you play the game. Well, that's kind of the question: is do you believe in that, or do you believe in winning at all cost? And if you aren't willing to win at all cost, and your competitor is, are you at a disadvantage? And how are you going to overcome it? Uh, that's another real problem here. There's is going to be cheating, and what's our response going to be? Uh, I can only imagine there's uh, a, some, I don't know if they're Brookings related, but some institution that's gained this out, and will and the and we will see a peaceful transfer of power. I think it's probably a little less than 50-50, the way I would bet, but we shall see. So in the meantime, guys, midterms, vote, 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 DDD, and so on and so forth. So let's kind of I want to follow up on some of these things. And what I want to point out is the ego, the what I call it, a megalomaniacal, a megalomaniac who just has to be part of everything, everywhere. Has to just insert himself, clearly where it's not wanted, and despite he's clearly unhelpful. But one of the most damaging things that I think they've done is this First Amendment attack on speech. And for instance, you know, Trump's trying to rewrite the history of the Smithsonian Institution, which was founded by, I think, Thomas R. Smithson, which is why it's the Smithsonian, and by calling the nonpartisan employees those who employ radical activist ideology, and that's, you know, these displays were truthful has not been in dispute, you know, and they've just been objectively accepted as what? As a common set of operative facts that, to the best of our ability, this represents what happened. This represents, you know, it's a museum. Of course, it's a thing of the past. Well, yes, it can be contemporary museum, but you know what I mean. Traditional museums. Uh, so how dangerous is that? When he inserts his rewritten version, what happens? The real version just gets rubbed off like an eraser, and you know it's hard to come back once you're erased, even for a little bit. So he's really doing a good job of stifling speech like that, because people know that eventually they'll get fired, and it might be sooner rather than later. And, you know, they may not have a few mil to, or they may not have made $2 billion last year that they have anything to fall back on. So this could be, you know, life or death for a lot of people. Home or homeless. Job is all that, you know, separates us a lot of times. And something else. You know, way back when, and it wasn't that long ago, there was a thing called, I think it was under Bill Clinton, an assault weapons ban. So people couldn't have M16s or AR-15s or, you know, whatever those guns are, assault weapons. And of course, Trump, you know, between Trump and the Supreme Court, they recognized no limits on the Second Amendment. And so, guess what? There is a market for AR-15s and M16s and weapons that'll fire, I don't know, 90 shots a minute. Or they might be even more. I don't know. I don't shoot. Uh, but yeah, they're taking money away from that. Doesn't that just shock you? And keep in mind, where did it go? To Trump's buddies. He fleeced us. Oh, you know, you know how they have that call and response thing at different churches or synagogues or mosques, whatever it is. Uh, you know, there ought to be a little thing with the refrain, Trump fleeced us. Like, under Trump, effective campaign to curb tobacco use gutted. And what I say? Mm, mm. Um, this is just, anyway, to be gutted, Trump fleeced us. How about with shifts of, the mission of gun policy? So they take away money from gun violence prevention. That makes a lot of sense, doesn't it? They take money away from gun violence protection or prevention. And where does that money go? He fleeced us. And how about this? Now, how did this happen? But some kind of, there must have been a huge payoff for this. The International Olympic Committee lifted the ban on Russia at the upcoming games. Now, why would they do that? You know, Russia's still pretty much a pariah. They still lost 1 million people in a unjustified war in Ukraine. So, what's he getting any reward for? I guess maybe, could it be? Could there be some sort of a bribe involved? I think the Latin is, and we all know this, the quid pro quo. Like, if you do something for me, I'll do something for you. Like, maybe if you, I don't know, 50 mil in my Swiss bank account, and I'll see what I can do about getting that ban overturned. Not a problem. In your bank account within minutes, my comrade. So I don't know that to be true, but would you be surprised? Of course, you know, it's not like we don't see deception and corruption every day. That's the most galling part of it. Is you see so much of it, you assume it's all, graft and corruption. And it's sad to say, in the Trump world, you'll be right much more often than you will ever be wrong. I mean, it's like credibility in lying. If Trump makes any given statement, there is well over a 50% chance that that statement won't be true. Would you bet on that? Well, I think if I knew something to be that sure, yeah, I think I'd bet on it every time. So anyway, and how about this? Uh, do you remember when it really did used to be? It's not whether you win or lose; it's how you play the game. It's the hard work and hustle can get you around the bases too. Who is that? Pete Rose, Mister Hustle. Well, games or other sports are supposed to be physical contests of some sort, whether it's hand-eye coordination and throwing a dart, or trying to kick a funny-looking a ball with funny colors into a net. Okay, whatever it is, it's not designed to be anything other than a sporting event, a contest of skill, of strength. A sport. But when you kind of have a little political rally in your favor, that's that doesn't really help matters. And I said when he made the call to the FIFA, when Trump called the FIFA guy about the red card, sports fans are used to close calls all the time, and that was clearly a close call. And people moan about all those things, but you rarely win or lose on one play. Usually it's a whole team effort, and but that's not good enough. See, Trump was more focused on the outcome. It's not whether you win or lose; it's how you play the game. Trump would say that's for suckers. It is whether you win or lose. Who could care less how you play the game if you lost? And so ethics and morality, integrity kind of go out of the window because that's the mindset from the top down. And it's not like he's subtle about it. It's like Friedman said, you can never bet on Trump to surprise on the upside. But just out of curiosity, if you would like to bet on Trump to surprise on the upside, give us a call at 949-629-3820. And we'd love to know what kind of situation you can see that happening under. Okay. And this is, how about this? So, with that, the World Cup is now a political showcase or political, I don't know. You know what it is? It's an unfair, it is fair. It's a tinged political situation. And we did the changing. The guy should, if he had a bit of honor, he would understand all this. But there's just no honor among thieves. There may be some sort of mutual admiration, but there's no honor among thieves. Especially, this kind of thief where things kind of only go one way. Uh, it's just such a shame. But anyway, let's take the mood a little upbeat for a second. And how about the groundswell for the Democratic Socialists? How about that? The Democratic Socialists, not those commies. We talk about the good old Democratic Socialists. I mean, don't we need a little Democratic Socialism every now and then? Like in the I don't know, maybe health insurance area and one or two things. Okay, so anyway, so why are these guys so popular? Have you heard? We've all kind of heard about the Democratic Socialists and the Progressive Democrats, whatever it is. Uh, but the real reason it's such a there's such a groundswell is because it's just the cost of living. Things have gotten so expensive so relatively quickly that I mean, I can take myself that I may be able to handle a basic car repair or so and all that, but if when a few things go wrong and it's like $1,500 later, what do you do? And the answer is you put it on your credit card and you just be like an American or an British, and try to just muddle through. But there's a very real problem out there. I mean, when you think about this, if a house cost, I don't know, let's $600,000, and you have to put 20% down, what's that? $24,000. Seems like a lot of money. Oh no, that's for whatever it is, a lot of money, right? And that means that, if the house is 600,000 or 500,000, how about that? We'll leave it at $500,000. At $500,000, which you can go entire neighborhoods around here and never find anything that cheap. Uh, so we've got to, like I said, there was a shortage of housing, and people, demand went up and prices went through the roof. It is unbelievable that things kept doubling like this. I mean, after all, that's clearly not a mortgage type economy. And don't forget, in addition to the traditional Fannie Mae and bank mortgages and all that, there's lots of these private lenders. God only knows what they charge, an interest rate and all that. But that's also a real threat, because as things keep going up, guess what? People may start walking away and leave these guys with a portfolio that might be worth, I don't know, 20% less. Or what if things went really bad? What if it just tanked, and the $500,000 house is now worth 250? That means there's $250,000 less of tax base to work with. And that, believe me, a 10% correction would be huge. To have something like that would be just financial Armageddon. I cannot imagine uh, the the level of instability that would provoke. I mean, at that point, lots of people can't eat. Lots of people don't have a place to stay. Uh, and God only knows what the weather's going to be like when that happens. So, I wish I could be a little more upbeat when it comes to this guy, but he just sucks. How about this? Oh, no, let's move into the old Financial Times, because I really love the Financial Times. Trump threatens to pull troops out of Europe despite NATO arms pledges, because the guy has no idea what it's like to actually, mean a word he says, or take his. I mean, you just can't take the guy's word to the bank. You might be able to take it to the bathroom. You might be able to take it to the, I don't know, the trash can, but you just can't take his word to the bank. And there's a little notation on the front page, and there's an article for the back. But that FIFA meddling is business as usual for Trump. That's what he does. He puts his thumb on the scale, like, yeah, even though he can buy the stock like a day before, he goes, and let's buy that, blank, blank, blank. So he just he makes everything about himself so he can profit. Don't think, when people fleece other people, they don't, they usually fleece them for their money. And this guy is claiming to be the leader. This is almost one of those Jim and Tammy Faye things. How do the faithful treat him now? How did the faithful treat Jim after he started having an affair, or Tammy Faye did, I don't know, whatever it was she did with whoever it might have been. God only knows how those guys operate. Uh, but there's a guy named Ed Luce who's a writer for the Financial Times, and Ed's thing was Trump and the FIFA debacle, and his what he wants to point out is the same statement I made before, is that teams might expect close calls, but trust me, or trust Ed, Trump is the first leader since Benito Mussolini in 1934 to intervene publicly in his team's favor. Now, let's get a few things straight. Trump just didn't, meddle at the red card situation. He deported the Somali referees. He banned Iran from staying overnight. He delayed entry for players from Senegal, Haiti, and Europe and Iraq. Uh, Now, those clearly had political roots, right? And guess what happened? It lost. It went made our standing in the world go down even more, if you can imagine such thing. And I don't know if I mentioned this yesterday, but considering the what was I saying? Oh, considering the algae situation and the Belgian, team and the red card and all that, I got to tell you guys about a comic I saw, and had a Belgian soccer player standing at one end of the reflecting pool, uh, peeing in the reflecting pool, flipping the bird to America with the other hand, and just laughing. And you see, that's even with your meddling, it didn't turn out well. So guys, again, July 8th, we're coming down on what 100 days to the election. Uh, I can only hope that people are getting active. I know there's matter of fact, it's so funny out here. There are so many Democrat activities. I can't go to them all. Like two, I've got two on the same night. The Laguna Beach Democrats are meeting, and the Costa Mesa Democrats are having a little social hour at the local brewery. And I can tell you which one I would rather go to, but unfortunately, I can't tell you that I will go to that one. Uh, yes, Democrat clubs. I'm a member of three of them: Laguna Beach, Newport. It's great. Newport is the Newport Beach Women's Democratic Club, and I'm a guy, and I would personally advocate for every male to join any women's club he possibly could, just on general principle. I mean, you're clearly in the minority, so that means the supply of men is short. You might want to reconsider. So anyway, one we've I'm a member of the Newport Beach Women's Democratic Club, Laguna Beach Democrats, and Costa Mesa Democrats, and they all have their own flavor. It's really interesting. I would never, I should have known this. I just didn't expect to see what I saw. And it's funny, Costa Mesa is a very practical minded club. Progressive, young, progressive, business oriented. Great people, right? At the other extreme is the Laguna Beach Democrats. And that's primarily a bunch of older people. And I'm older, and everybody's like older like me. I mean, I don't know. Maybe the crowd is, I don't know, 40 to 80. I don't know, something like that. And there's a good many people that turn out in Laguna. And what I've noticed is that people in Laguna Beach seem to take a much bigger world view. The Costa Mesa Democrats are pretty concerned about operating locally. Laguna uh, Democrat Club wants to have a bit more of a reach, and so they'll have people from different districts, and you can just see it in their Instagram posts. And in the middle somewhere, I would have to put the Newport Beach Women's Democrat Club, because it seems to me as though those guys are really not interested in preserving the status quo, uh, but clearly moving incrementally, and not with a whole lot of speed, and only after a whole lot of deliberation. So with that in mind, I say they all. I'm really lucky they all let me join. I'm registered to vote here in Newport Beach, but I say Costa Mesa is just on one side, where you have to go to get a good cheap meal, and Laguna Beach a little bit south of here, which is always been a really progressive community. And I had wondered, a lot of Democrat clubs, you have to be registered to vote in the district to be a member. And I was really upfront with Laguna Beach and Costa Mesa until I was joining as a non-resident member, because I thought it was important to do so. I said to do so now. And whenever I interview people that are new to politics, and they say something like, and well, when I ask them, why now, and they're like, somebody's got to step up. Action needs to be taken. We're not going in a positive direction. And if you believe the old Bill Clinton thing about if you're in a hole, the first thing you do is quit digging, you might realize that we have a leader who is incapable of stopping the digging. He is incapable of making matters better for the public. Now he clearly knows how to make things better for he and his kids and his family and all that. Uh, but as far as general caring about people, like I say, when you think about warm, caring, sensitive human beings, I think about like maybe Mother Teresa, or maybe even Jesus. And but what doesn't jump to mind is Trump. And like I said, the hypocrisy that comes as the sort of thing. Well, we want to. Oh, how about this? Nixon had a bowling, or Eisenhower, whoever it was, had a bowling alley put in, and Barack Obama had a basketball court put in. So we're gonna make a little improvement here and tear down the East Wing. I mean, they try to conflate make this moral equivalency argument, and it's just laughable on its face. And I think we're deep enough into the administration where judges are just about laughing these guys out of court. And if they're not laughing these guys out of court, they're asking them to declare certain statements to be true or false, as the case may be, under penalty of perjury. And that means that if you lie, you go to Yale. And I don't mean Yale in New Haven, Connecticut. I mean Yale, like when local police officers take you to Yale. Uh, and of course, you see that with Attorney General Blanche, who God knows this guy should never be confirmed. But the Republicans have power in D.C. They have the House and they have the Senate, and most of the judiciary. At least 60%. When Trump goes before the Supreme Court, there's a better than even chance that he'll win this. And there's a better than even chance that when he wins, it'll be a 6-3 decision, which means it's along party lines, according to beliefs, and not, that the outcome was clearly more important than whether you won or lost. Trump wanted to win. He didn't care. Do what he doesn't want. You don't want to have that big L on his forehead, but he just. I can't imagine why they don't have some sort of a steady cartoon with Trump and the big L, because you know what, you can even have like a different word of the day. Loser, that might be a good word for tomorrow. We'll kind of sleep on it overnight. And what anything else we want to get to today? Probably this weekend. Does anybody know when the next No Kings is going to be? I said let's. It's got to be coming up fairly soon. And how many people can we turn out this time? Can we turn out? Gosh, 15 million. Think about that. 15 million people actively protesting. And I don't know about you, but I think that'd be pretty hard to ignore. And wouldn't you love to see Fox coverage? Now, this always leads me to a really interesting question. And the interesting question is, what does Trump actually perceive as, or what sort of news is presented to him? And I would just like to know, does any of the bad stuff get through, or does he really, really think that everything is just hunky dory? I mean, he goes to these rallies and he sees the empty seats. And, the question is, does he see it? Does he know it? Or does he just drift off into some, Trumpian consciousness that just lets him stand there and spew lies for 2 hours and ask for some money? And, did I say ask for money? Doesn't that seem like kind of fleecing again? I got to tell you, that guy should have been named Donald F. Trump, and the F is for fleece. But guys, like I said, looking back on today, you've got to thank Tom Friedman for his insight. And I want to kind of repeat a Friedman thing. And Friedman pointed out in another article that instead of the Monroe Doctrine, which the Republicans tried to co-opt and turn into the Donroe Doctrine, and you know the Monroe Doctrine, James Monroe, no new governments, no new countries in this hemisphere, like we don't need any, any violence, any competition in the neighborhood, and they tried to co-opt that into the Donroe Doctrine about power and peace and strength and all that. Uh, but Friedman laid out the real Donroe Doctrine. And again, that's the Donroe Doctrine says that if you hate Trump, he will tariff you. He'll tear you down somehow. And if you need Trump, he'll extort you. And you can see it in each one of these negotiations, right? Uh, Trump just so what can he possibly extort? Well, let's go back to the original example and Volodymyr Zelensky at the beginning of the war, right? Don't you think that looking back on it, that when Trump says, actually, when Volodymyr says, President, I need a tomahawk, I need a, whatever it is, that Trump goes, well, I need a little favor for you. Hold on, before we get those weapons you really need to survive before your country just gets slaughtered and is leveled to a nuclear wasteland. Before I give you these weapons that might help you, like beat the living daylights out of those guys. Matter of fact, they won't know what hit them. No, we'll give you such good weapons. But before I give you those really good weapons, I need a little favor. Well, what would that be? Well, how about if you find some dirt on my opponent, Joe Biden? Or let's see, how about the guy from the election in Georgia? I just need to find, like what's the guy supposed to do? Not everyone, even though there are enablers and enablers. And I think pretty much, and everybody that voted for Trump clearly is an enabler. The vote is that without which he wouldn't be there and we wouldn't have to deal with him. But you guys pull the lever. But the good news is, in just a few weeks, maybe 10 weeks, we all get the chance to pull the lever again. And while we can't undo the past, we can clearly try to stop the dating and start the process of turning the country of uniting, making everybody feel like American again. But now you had the immigrants versus the Proud Boys versus the God knows what. And, in those situations, it's easier for somebody who manipulates and exploits people like Trump to take advantage. But, we know what he is. And can you imagine if the rest of the world is reading an editorial in the U.S. Trump is fleecing America. In lots of countries that wouldn't be printed. Thank God we've got some of the First Amendment left. Thank God that Friedman has the courage to write what he writes, and Michelle Goldberg and Cottle and Stevens and Bruni and all the rest of the guys at the Times. Thanks for having the credibility to and the courage, I said, to print the stuff. Way back when you would have to show it to the king, and if the king didn't like it, you ain't getting to print it. But this is pretty close to pure First Amendment. And guys, anybody that can manage some bit of purity in the Donald Trump swamp, you have to admire. And on that, I'm going to try to lead this, like I say, on a positive note, and remind everybody: November 2nd. Let's just start to turn the thing around. We know what the problem is. And that John Dean thing about a cancer growing on the presidency when he talked about Watergate? Well, I think Trump is the cancerous presidency, and treated like any other cancer. Let's get rid of it ASAP, and we'll deal with the results after that. But you got to get rid of them. Let's cut the cancer that is the Trump regime. Let's get those guys out of here. Tell them to take a hike, or how about a long walk off short pier. And guys,